Hello there, this is MD with you here on GebZilla. In this video, we're going to export our postcard. We're gonna export some icons. We're gonna make JPEGs. We're gonna make PDFs. We'll show you to make really high quality ones for your printer, low quality ones that you can get downloaded from our website with emails, plus how to export individual icons, PNGs, SVGs. It's all very exciting. Enough talk. Let's get started. Alright, to get started, if you go to File, Open, and go to your exercise files, there are two files we need, Export Print and Export Web. Open both of those up for me. One looks like this, one looks like that. Okay, let's start with exporting print. So just click on the tab along the top, and let's say, our goal here is to send this out to get printed. We want 100 copies done at our local print shop. The most common format for sharing with printers is a PDF. We'll do a JPEG as well, but a PDF will give you better results. Retain some of the vector goodness inside of these images. Don't worry too much about it. Just know that PDFs give you really high quality, really small file sizes. Now to do it, it's kind of weird. You got to File and you think you go to Export, but nope. You go to Save As. Go to Save As. And the big thing we need to do is down at the bottom where it says Format. Change it to PDF. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm gonna put it on my Assets folder in that class files folder that we made. I'm just gonna leave the name alone and click Save. Alright, so this is where all the magic happens. And up at the top here, where it says PDF preset, change this to high quality print. So that's step number 1. The only other thing you need to do is where it says Preserve Illustrator editing capabilities. Turn that off. Why? Because with that on, there's actually no difference between the PDF that we're making and the Illustrator file. It has all like working back-end stuff that only Illustrator needs. Your printer doesn't need it. So with that off, it makes the file not as smart, let's say, but it makes the file sizes absolutely small. And there's nothing that the printer actually needs. Okay, so don't worry about it. Just set it to high quality, print, turn that off, and hit Save PDF. Illustrator is gonna say, hey, you turned that thing off. But I kind of half explained it there. We just don't need all that extra information for a PDF. It does its thing. Let's check out my Assets folder. I've got that class files, and there it is there. Exporting PDF. It is only 0.7 megabytes. Teeny tiny. Let's have a look if we don't do it. It's a big PDF. It's probably cause you've accidentally forgotten. I'm gonna do a V2. You've forgotten to turn that off. So I've left it on just to see what it does. Let's have a little look. Takes a lot longer to make. But let's have a little look. Got a V2. One is 32 megabytes. And one is 0.7 megabytes. So huge difference. They will both print exactly the same for the printer. Just with a lot of information. They don't need it. Alright. So that's how to get a high quality looking real good print. That's gonna be a PDF still. But let's look at doing say something. It's gonna be something that's maybe downloadable from your website. Or something that you email out to clients. So let's look at doing it. It's a very similar process. Save as. This one's going to be my low res version. Same thing as before. PDF. And all we need to do though is at the top. Let's go to the smallest file size. Make sure that's off. It's still off. Click Save. It says, you turned that thing off. I said I know. Now my disk up here, you'll get a lot smaller version low res. Can you see? That was 703 kilobytes, which is only 164. Now, if you have a look at it, it looks fine, and I guess in today's world, it's a lot smaller. It's teeny tiny, half a megabyte is just fine, so you might not even have to get down to that really small file size. But we just got one page, with all sorts of things going on. Now one thing that might happen is, you might have a huge document, it's not unlikely, but you might get a chance where you set it to the high quality and still come out really ugly. You know what happened? You can go up to effects and go to document raster settings. Okay, and that might have been switched earlier on to something like a screen. Very low quality. You can turn it up here. Click OK. Yeah, I've had students run into that in the past. Let's say now that I want a JPEG, and this JPEG could be going for print, or it needs to be uploaded to, say, your WordPress blog, and you need a JPEG. Again, they like to hide. Let's go to File. Let's go to Export. Says Export for screens. You can use the exporters as well, or all three of these work. This is just the newer one. Exports for screens. And it's just really handy. I want to export this one here to this tab. Yours probably defaults to artboards. When I export this artboard, where do I want it to go? I'm gonna click this little browse button. I'm gonna stick it in my assets folder. And that same file, choose. What kind of format do I want it to be? Okay, this case JPEGs probably work perfectly. We'll do PNGs when we look at web in a minute, but basically, this is our quality slider here. Try 100, and what you're looking for, that's as good as it can get. You may have to lower it down to file sizes getting too big, but JPG 100 is kind of looks nice. You might actually just add a scale. And instead of scale, turn it back to 1 and actually just say, we actually want a JPEG that's 50 as well. So it's gonna give me two options when it I can compare the two just to see the file size versus the quality. Alright, let's click Export Artboard and hopefully, now, I've got Artboard 1, and Artboard 1 to 50, which means it's just the half quality one. And you can see the size. It's about the half. And let's look at the two resolutions 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Hardly see the difference. So either of those works for me. Let's look at something doing something slightly different. So PDF is the best. JPEGs are fine. But let's say, I wanna export lots of individual parts like this. I don't want this to be a full white document with these guys in the middle. I want them to have this kind of transparency, so I can see through them. So that's first thing. I need to make them something PNG. But also, I don't want to export them like what a lot of people do is they'll delete this, then export that one. Okay. And then delete everything but this one. And then export that. So exporting them individually is new and a little trick that Illustrator does. And they like to hide it in a completely different space from all the other things. And it's this option here under Window. And go to this one that says Asset Export. So this little panel here, I'm just gonna drag it to the side. So all you do is grab this one here, just click, hold and drag it. You can't drag the center cause there's no fill on it. You have to grab the edge. So black arrow, grab the edge, drag it over here. There he is there. So we drag all our icons in. We give them a name. This one's called my palette. Okay. So I drag this. Next 1-inch funnel. Here we go. Alright. Flame. Let's have a look at flame. So what I am going to do is this is actually in two parts. So I am going to select it with my black arrow. Both of them. And then I am going to drag both of them inches and wrong. Okay. Can you see because they weren't grouped? I mean there must be two separate shapes. Okay. So I'm going to undo that and then you see two separate shapes. But if I select them both, go to object, go to group first, then drag them inches and then I can call it flame. Knowing that we can drag more than one in, I've grouped all of these. Now I'll grab all of these and let's drag them all in. You can see how it gets a little easier with a bit of practice. This one's my brush. This one is my stamp. Pencil. That'll do. Okay. So you've got them all in here. Nothing really has happened. So this is kind of like a holding area. Okay. What I need to do is I need to select all of these. But when I click it, can you see what went blue? The editor will zoom in. It's a little hard to see on your own screen. You can click on individual ones and I can pick. I want it to be a JPEG, or I want to be a PNG. What I'd like to do is just do them all at the same time. So hold shift and just click them all. Until they're all blue. Alright. Now to the bottom here. You gotta decide on the format. Now, let's pretend we are going out to our website. And we want transparency. So JPEG. Unfortunately, doesn't allow transparency. It'll put a white background on here. So if you export it, you'll be like, white background? Weird. So you need to be this PNG. That will give you your kind of transparent background. But there is a new format that's getting more and more popular called SVG. Could do a PDF here as well. Okay. But SVG would say, I'm sending it to a web designer or developer for icons for a website. They might go. You might have a chat with them. They're kind of new. Like the developers I know. Half of them know exactly what an SVG is and how to use it. And the other half are like. So I just send them JPEGs. What you can do though if you're unsure, or if you're unsure if they're unsure, is see this thing that says add scale. We're not gonna scale it out. We're gonna back to 1x so they're both the original size. But we're gonna do this. So it just means one's gonna be PNG. One's gonna be SVG. And it's just gonna make two copies for you. You can send them both, and they can just use whatever they like. So let's click export. In my class files, I'm gonna make a folder just to keep them all separate. So these are my web icons. Click create, pick choose, and hopefully now on my assets folder somewhere, I've got web icons, and you'll see I've got two brushes. One's a PNG, one's an SVG, and if you're like what is an SVG? It's basically a vector graphic. Now everyone knows what a vector graphic is. Go check out a video here on YouTube about vector versus bitmap. It will explain it in a lot more detail. But a PNG is a certain size and if I scale, it's bigger. It's gonna get all yucky and distorted. But in SVG, if I scale it up, you see a king's scale up to a size of a mountain or a teeny tiny size, and it's still very, very small. A lot smaller than the PNG. So that's getting you more and more around the world. SVG is a scalable vector graphic. PNG is, I have no idea. It's some sort of group. Photography network group. I'm guessing. And the cool thing about it is you can see you've got all these icons now all ready to go. It gets even better when you start updating them. Watch this. If I go through now and I change the stroke color of this one to pink, can you see it change over here? And hit export. Actually, I'll just do them all. Let's do them all. Click on all of them. Click on stroke. They're all pink. You see the updated here. Export. Man. Cool. Think of all the time you can save. They all should be updated in pink. Just make sure they're grouped. Give them a name. That my friends are how to export for both print and for web using Adobe Illustrator. Alright. This was the last video on this course. See you in more coming videos. Thanks for watching. MD was with you here on GebZilla.